There's a kind of disconnect going on in America right now. 79% of Americans say we're not going to miss President Bush when he leaves office. That's according to the latest NBC News Wall Street Journal poll. Almost half of us, 48%, think that Bush will go down as one of the worst presidents in history. Just 18% said that of Bill Clinton in 2000, and only 6% said that of Bush's dad in '92. So what's the disconnect? Well, Americans agree that January 20th can't come fast enough, but too many of us are, maybe because of wishful thinking, looking the other way as we come to the merciful finish line. You know, Bush is still in charge. It's hard to pay attention to, but we really ought to. That's why it's time again for the Rachel Maddow Show's Lame Duck Watch, because somebody's got to do it. President-elect Obama has promised to shut down Guantanamo and the military commission system that his predecessor put in place. But President Bush appears to be working to obstruct Obama's plan. According to a recent Time magazine article, quote, carrying the banner for the process of extending the military commissions is Brigadier General Thomas W. Hartman, who as the top legal advisor and chief administrator of the trials has managed to put 17 complex war crimes cases on the docket in less than 18 months. Hartman's office has confirmed that more terrorism trials will be announced before Obama's inauguration. Once all the tribunals at Guantanamo are underway, the fear is that Obama may find it politically and maybe even legally difficult to stop those proceedings and close down Guantanamo. Aside from the area of political deck stacking, on Monday, authorities at Guantanamo hosted an emotional made-for-TV moment, the first ever visit to the trials by families of victims of September 11th, apparently to remind us that dangerous terrorists are housed there and there is a connection between Guantanamo and 9/11. Yesterday, Guantanamo officials gave the media a rare tour of the base's detention centers and even gave a sort of sales pitch for Guantanamo.
Some people have the wrong perception of Guantanamo. That's a fact. Undisputable are the conditions of detention here. They're world class. They're safe and humane.
So they are selling Guantanamo to us again, just like they're repitching the Bush doctrine, just like they're repitching President Bush as a God-fearing family man who liberated millions of people. The military commissions are a huge success. Iraq was a huge success. At least they are if that idea will salvage the image for history that George W. Bush wasn't the worst president of all time. Joining us now is Glenn Greenwald, constitutional lawyer and columnist for Salon.com. Glenn, nice to see you. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here, Rachel.
Do you think that the Bush administration is doing things at Guantanamo now to make it harder for Obama to follow up on his campaign promise to close it?
I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, if you look back at the history of Guantanamo, the one thing that was missing was any haste to try any of the detainees there. In fact, the president continuously asserted the power to put people into cages for life with no process of any kind. And suddenly what you have, as Obama is about to be inaugurated, and the promise that he made to close Guantanamo was so emphatic that it's virtually inevitable, is this extraordinary rush to commence all of these military commissions, including against some of the most controversial detainees, such as Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the alleged mastermind of 9/11, so that by the time Obama is inaugurated, these commissions will have commenced but not have concluded, and will, in I think the eyes of the Bush administration and what they hope for, will be a real complication in Obama's intention to close Guantanamo and shut down these commissions.
Politically, I think we're already seeing the outcome of these efforts by the Bush administration as a sort of, in my mind, a really whack consensus emerges from the sort of Washington think tank world that there's got to be some sort of indefinite detention without trial, even in American domestic law. There's got to be some sort of Guantanamo 2.0 system set up if Obama does close the prison in Cuba. That's emerging from even quarters I think that you would think of as liberal. Do you see that as a political effect of what Bush is doing?
I think there's a clear effort underway on the part of the same people who have spent the last 8 years trying to frighten the American people into believing that they had to submit to all sorts of perversions of our system of government. You know, the people who told the American people that unless we invaded Iraq, they would be slaughtered by Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction handed to his friends in al-Qaeda, or that if we didn't let the president eavesdrop on our conversations with no warrant or torture people. Our families would be killed by terrorists. These are people like Jack Goldsmith, a former Bush administration Justice Department lawyer, and even the Democratic Party associated think tank, the Brookings Institution, the war cheerleading Brookings Institution, people who are joining together to now tell Americans that if we close Guantanamo, that they are likely to be endangered unless we empower the president to literally put people into prison for life with no charges of any kind, or create new secret national security courts of the type that we just are getting ready to close in Guantanamo. It's pure fear-mongering. There's no reason whatsoever that these detainees can't be transferred to the American justice system and tried in our courts of law, which have successfully prosecuted all sorts of high-level terrorists in a very orderly and just fashion.
Are we seeing the same sort of thing with the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Sylvester Reyes, who started making some noises that we maybe ought to look I see him as sort of apologizing for torture, essentially saying that we may want to look at not restricting the ability to torture in American agencies.
Well, I think one of the things that often gets overlooked, because these programs are typically blamed on the Bush administration, and rightfully so, since they're the ones who conceived of it and first implemented it, is the extent of the complicity on the part of leading congressional Democrats. In most of these programs, not only were they briefed on it, people like Nancy Pelosi and Jane Harman and Jay Rockefeller briefed that we were torturing, that we were eavesdropping illegally, and in many cases they did nothing about it. Often they assented actively to these programs. You also have a whole series of laws that have been passed with the aid of the Democrats and even with the Democrats in control of Congress to authorize things like these military commissions and to immunize the people in our government who have broken the law and violated international treaties. And so the fact that the leading House Democrat on the Intelligence Committee is urging that the CIA director and the Director of National Intelligence, the people who have overseen these programs that have done such damage to our country, urging that they be retained and that some of these programs be maintained by Obama is not surprising. Many of these Democrats have given full-throated support to a lot of these programs, even as they try to heap the blame on the Bush administration.
So even though Obama says he wants to do the right thing, he's really going to have to lead his own party.
Yeah, there are many factions, including the Democrats, that will try to stop him.
Glenn Greenwald, constitutional lawyer, bomb thrower extraordinaire, metaphorically speaking, of course, and columnist for Salon.com. It's nice to see you, Glenn. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here, Rachel. Thanks.